everyone, we're going to talk about my most used eyeshadows today, and these are ones that are potentially in palettes or singles. And there's a few that I've shown a lot of love to over the years, and I just wanted to tell you which ones I always gravitate towards. The first few shadows that I'm going to talk about are all by INGLOT, and unfortunately they give numbers to their shadows as names instead of like a full proper name, and I don't always know the number off the top of my head, so I'll be sure to annotate the number down here. But the first one I'm going to talk about I think is called like AMC Shine, either 24 or 26, and this is hands down my favorite INGLOT shadow ever. I've hit a huge chunk of pan on this color, and it's one that I always wear on the lid. I go back to this shade, I don't think weekly, but it's probably every other week to wear it. It's such a beautiful pale mint green shade with a lot of shimmer in it. It's got a lot of white in the base, so you will notice that it's kind of a duochrome in the sense that you can put it on and it looks quite pale, but if it catches the light from a certain angle, it shines a lot of green at you. And I find this works really well with purples and blues. And for me, it's just one of those colors that I feel brings my eyes alive, and I'm always happy whenever I wear it. So I've hit a huge chunk of pan on here clearly, and it's just because I adore this shadow so much. So the next shade is again by INGLOT, and this one is actually printed on the back, so I do know the number is 15. Not all of them have printing on the back. But this is a very shimmery orange shade with a very small hint of gold to it. I wear this on the lid, much like that green shade, and it's very me, I feel like. I first discovered this shade and I put it together with a red, and I just felt like this is me in an eyeshadow look, and actually it's become a color combination that I go back to every single year on my birthday. My birthday is January 18th, and I always wear this on the lid with a red that I'll mention in a little bit, on the outer corner with a glitter on the lower lash line, and for me that is just like my birthday look every single year. And I did actually film a tutorial on it when I first started my channel. I'll link to it down below. It's a little bit awkward. It's me being a little bit shy because I wasn't used to speaking to the camera, but yeah, you can see that look if you're curious to see how this looks like on my eye. But to me, this represents like that perfect orange shimmery shade that I love on the lid. So while that green feels very much like me from the cool tone side of things, this one feels very me from the warm side of things. I haven't hit pan on this one yet, which is kind of surprising to me because I have worn it a ton, but there is a huge dent in it. So the next few shades are actually in a palette I put together by INGLOT, and the red that I was just referencing is this one right here. I bought this years and years ago, long before anybody had a red eyeshadow color, and this was the only brand that I could find that had an eye safe version, and I was so entranced by this color. It was just like, finally I found red eyeshadow, and when I paired it with that orange shade on the lid, I was just like, this is life. This is the colors that I've been hunting for absolute years, because I think I bought that red 7 years ago. Like, it was a really long time ago, and it doesn't sound like there wouldn't have been red eyeshadow back then, but I swear there wasn't. It was near impossible to find. Anyway, that red I think is just fantastic. It's got a huge place in my heart because it truly was the first red eyeshadow that I ever owned, and it just made me really fall in love with red eyeshadow. Now the other 4 shades I'm going to talk about are in this palette, but I'm going to mention them kind of briefly because I use them basically all the same way, and that's these 4 on the bottom row. I use all 4 of these shades in the outer corner or through my crease to really deepen up a lid shade that is like that green or like the orange, although I don't think the orange would fit that well with these colors. They are flawless shades. They work out so nicely when you want to do a smooth blend, you want to put a lot of color or pigment into a look. These shadows by INGLOT are fantastic. I mean, INGLOT in general makes wonderful quality shadows, but I felt like these 4 have worked for me over the years so much that I always go back to them when I know I want to put color on my eyes and I want it to be absolutely perfect. I will often take this paler purple, throw that through my crease as a transition color, and then use that darker purple to deepen up the outer corner, maybe throw a blue on the lid, and it's beautiful. And then these 2 over here, I'll tend to use those 2 interchangeably through the crease or in the outer corner, depending on the lid shade that I'm putting on. I tend to gravitate towards the more green one if I'm wearing a green, and the more blue one if I'm wearing a blue on the lid. Moving on from INGLOT, I gotta point out a shadow in the original Naked palette. Now, this is the shade Virgin. I've hit a ton of pan on it. It's on its last legs. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be able to dip my brush in there without the shadow starting to crack because I've really hit the edges. This color, so many people said, was a dupe for MAC's Shroom. I do not agree, not even remotely. I think the colors are totally different. And it's funny that I should say that because at their essence, they're just a slightly pink toned, pale, shimmery color. Like there's not a ton of pigment in this color because it is quite pale. It's similar to my, you know, skin color, but there's something so special about Urban Decay's Virgin that every time I've put it on the lid, I've always been like, you're unique, you're special. And I had tried Shroom on the lid much in the same way that I used Virgin, and I was always disappointed. I was like, you're not the same color. You don't look the same. You're not as special as Virgin. So this is a color that I've gone back to a lot for job interviews. I always put this color all over the lid and then mix in some of the other colors over here. But Virgin to me has always just been that super special cream color that works out so nicely on me, and I really can't pinpoint what makes it so special other than to say that it's totally different from other cream bone shimmery colors of the same ilk. I just feel like Virgin is light years beyond the other shades, and I'm sad that I'm close to finishing it up. Well, I probably could go buy it in a single, but I do truly love the Naked palette. But that shade in there, super special. Now, in talking about Urban Decay, there are two shadows in the Electric palette that I need to talk about. The first one is Fringe over here. It has been replicated in their After Dark palette, which I'm not sure is still out, but I have seen, you know, Urban Decay re-promote Fringe multiple times over. I'm mentioning that because you can't get the Electric palette anymore. I think you can buy it on Urban Decay Canada, but that might be it. I had initially disregarded Fringe because it's a darker shimmery color, and I don't tend to use those kinds of shades directly on my lid because I prefer something a little bit paler, and it's not a color I would tend to use through the crease. So I had initially thought, whatever, it's not, you know, a color I'm going to use that much. But there was one day that I put the INGLOT green shadow on my lid, and then I put this purple shade down here called Urban on the outer corner. We'll get to that shade in a minute. And I was like, okay, I like the colors, but they don't look that good side by side. I need something in between to really mesh them together. So I don't know what possessed me to put Fringe between the two colors, but it was miraculous is the only word I could think of. And that look has become one of my favorite go-to looks for events that I'm going to, because the transition from a pale shimmery green out to a purple with Fringe in the middle is beautiful. I did film it as a tutorial. I called it something like Mermaid something or other years ago, and I'll link to that down below. But that fade of those three colors was beautiful. I just loved it so much. So I really found that Fringe worked well as a transition color on the lid between two shades that are somewhat similar. Now, the purple that I've been referencing, Urban, is another super special one in this palette. That is one that I've used in connection with those shades I've already mentioned, but there's something really special about that purple, and I don't actually think I have a dupe of it in my collection. I've hunted because I'm worried about running out of it because you can't get this palette anymore. And it's hard to dupe. Like, there's shades that are similar but not quite the same tone, and unless they're dead on, I'm not gonna call it a dupe. So this purple is shimmery, but it's quite dark, and I actually like putting this one in the outer corner. I don't tend to love shimmery colors in the outer corner. I'm getting a little bit more used to it as time goes on. Actually, that's what's happening in my eye today. I've got shimmery colors up there. But this color, for whatever reason, the depth of that purple, even though it's shimmery, just sort of works in that outer corner area. So mixing that with Fringe and then that other INGLOT shadow is one of my absolute favorite looks. And I've worn that at least over 10 times, which maybe doesn't sound like that much, but I have a lot of eyeshadow in my collection, and I don't usually replicate eyeshadow looks day to day. I'm typically always trying something new, so for me to go back to one specific color combination tells you just how much I really like that look. And the last two shadows that I'm going to talk about are by Makeup Geek. The first one is Razzleberry, and I think you can kind of figure out why I like this one so much. It's a very vibrant red shade with a lot of luminosity to it that's mostly coming from the little golden flecks that are in this color. Now, the golden flecks don't stick on the skin that much. They're not that obvious, but they will stick a little bit, so you get that kind of hint of golden sheen. And I feel like that really makes this color special, because I've seen a lot of red colors over the years, more recently, but not a lot of them have that sort of like golden reflect to them. And it's not like a duochrome or even a shimmer, but the flecks in here do show up enough that you get a little bit more of a special red color. And the very last one I'm going to mention by Makeup Geek is Hologram. Now, this is technically one of their pigments, but I pressed it because I don't like working with pigments. I feel like they're just a pain in the butt, really. So Hologram is mostly yellow. I think that's what you're seeing in the viewfinder, but if you hold it at certain angles, it goes kind of peach red and then back again. It's wild. This color is unreal on the eyes. And I just like how this color shifts so much, because when you put sometimes duochromes on the eyes, I don't feel like the shift is always super apparent. On this one, it's very strong, and if I pair this with Razzleberry, it's even more of a shifting color. You'll get like that yellow kind of fading to red and then into Razzleberry if I put that on the outer corner, and you just kind of see it like moving. It's beautiful. Easily one of my favorites out of their kind of duochromatic pigment shades that they launched quite a few years ago now. And I think it's just pretty. Like, even when I'm holding it at certain lights, I'm now getting more of like a peach pink. It's absolutely unreal. I think this is one of the best colors that they've ever come out with, and I've reached for this a lot just with red shades, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. All right, so that is it for my most reach for eyeshadows. I know I talk a lot about palettes on my channel, so I did want to highlight some of the shadows, and I mean, some of them are singles and some of them are in palettes, but these are definitely the ones that I go back to over and over again, just because I feel like they just work, you know, like you can trust it, and it's not like you're trying out something new. So I go back to these constantly because I know the eyeshadow look is going to come out perfectly whenever I use them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.